To survive the sickening stench of the 1665 plague pits, you forcefully pack your nostrils with crushed garlic,
chewing bitter angelica root before flipping rotting corpses with a splintered stick.
The suffocating summer heat of 1665 is thick with the biting smell of stale vinegar. It is soaked deeply into your heavy woolen dress. The remaining city doctors mandate this sweltering clothing, falsely believing open pores invite the deadly venom of the sickness. You ignore the sweat stinging your eyes. You lean over the stiffened body lying on the straw mattress. Your splintered wooden stick presses hard against the corpse's rigid chin. You forcefully pry open the rigor mortis jaw. The sudden, dry snap of decaying teeth echoes in the terrifyingly quiet room. You stare down the throat, inspecting the flesh for the blackened tongue. You pull the stick away and flip the heavy, unyielding shoulder, scanning the armpits for the telltale tokens, the dark, necrotic spots signaling the pestilence. There they are. You step back, tightly gripping your red parish wand. As a legally appointed plague searcher, this red rod is mandatory, meant to warn healthy citizens of your contaminated presence in the streets. You hear the terrified, rapid breathing of the deceased man's wife huddled in the far corner. She knows exactly what your discovery means. By tomorrow morning, the parish constables will arrive with their buckets of pitch. They will paint a foot-long red cross on her front door, accompanied by the drying words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." Worse, you must report this to the authorities to enforce the Lord Mayor's merciless decree. The thick wooden door will be firmly nailed shut from the outside. The healthy woman will be legally trapped inside with the rotting miasma, condemned to slowly starve in the shadows of her own home. You step out of the condemned house into the blinding summer sun. The narrow alleys trap the sweltering heat, locking in the suffocating stench of rotting garbage that everyone falsely believes is the deadly miasma causing the sickness. You grip your red parish wand. Passing citizens immediately recoil, frantically pressing their faces into vinegar-soaked rags to avoid your contaminated presence. You chew bitter angelica root, grinding it just as you once ground dead street dogs into chalky unicorn horn cures before the wealthy physicians fled London, leaving illiterate women like you as the only medical authority. The system offers no mercy. You help compile the grim bills of mortality printed every Thursday, watching the royal court desperately downplay the thousands of dead to prevent mass panic. Ahead, brutal magistrates order vagrants to be publicly whipped over the cobblestones, blindly convinced their moral impurity magically attracts the pestilence. You keep your head down, fully aware the parish pays you a miserable 2 pence per infected body, essentially swearing you to an oath of future starvation the moment the plague ends. Retreating safely to your damp cellar, you quietly brew a sweet tea from hoarded, dried rose petals, savoring a fleeting, solitary moment of fragrant warmth. Then, the wood splinters violently beneath the heavy, iron-tipped boot of a screaming parish watchman. The watchman drags you into a suffocatingly dark manor, shoving you toward an arrogant surgeon clutching a perfumed pomander. The physician utterly refuses to touch the infected. He violently shoves a rusty iron lancet into your trembling hands. The sickroom air is so overwhelmingly thick with burning brimstone and pitch that you choke, coughing up heavy black soot, just trying to draw breath. The surgeon points to the groaning patient strapped to the heavy oak bed. He orders you to strap live, plucked pigeons to the patient's swelling limbs, forcing you to feel the heavy birds frantically suffocate against the feverish skin in a useless attempt to draw out the venom. You brace yourself against the terrifying physical resistance as the dull iron lancet presses into the unnatural tension of the swollen buboes. You immediately pack the agonizing pressure points with a searing poultice of roasted onions, caustic lye soap, and pigeon dung. As you step back to wipe the stinging sweat from your eyes, a heavy, muffled clink cuts through the moans. The patient's son, a wealthy heir draped in pristine silk, approaches your washing station. He quietly drops smuggled silver coins into your wooden bucket of stale vinegar. He leans close with a terrifying demand. You must officially diagnose his entirely healthy, elderly father in the next room with the plague. This falsified medical decree will ensure the old man is legally nailed inside to starve, guaranteeing the ruthless son his unshared inheritance. If Agnes's horrifying reality of medical torture and intimate family betrayal has already shattered your view of this city, there are 7 more women in this channel whose stories are just as buried and real. You escape the suffocating manor, plunging back into the chaotic descent of the city's grinding underbelly. To survive the overwhelming, eye-watering stench of rotting flesh waiting at the Aldgate plague pits, you violently pack your nostrils with a thick, burning paste of crushed garlic and rue. You thrust your hand deep into your heavy woolen pocket, anxiously gripping a dried, hollowed-out toad. The remaining apothecaries swear the dead amphibian's leathery flesh will magically absorb the poisonous effluvia radiating from the muddy graves. Your leather boots slip along the treacherous, sweltering banks of the Fleet River. The water is entirely choked. You stare at the massacred corpses of thousands of stray dogs and cats, blindly ordered killed by the Lord Mayor, inadvertently multiplying the very fleas swarming in the stagnant heat. You push through the buzzing insects, entering the poorest districts where the desperate cannot afford expensive frankincense. Instead, they are burning old, rotting leather shoes to create a purifying smoke. The thick, acrid smog violently burns your throat. You pull a specialized iron crowbar from your apron, silently prying the heavy iron staples off a red-crossed door to let terrified, uninfected teenagers escape into the dark night. Suddenly, a terrifying scream shatters the alleyway. A delirious victim, driven completely mad by the searing pain of the swelling venom, bursts out of an infected cellar to intentionally grab a perfectly healthy stranger, fiercely hugging them to share their agonizing misery. The frenzied screams fade as the suffocating summer heat gives way to the chilling dampness of midnight. The heavy wooden wheels of the parish death carts rumble violently over the cobblestones, breaking the desolate silence. You stand hidden in the shadows of a soot-stained alley, resting your mandatory red wand against the damp brick. Your exhausted eyes watch the brutal, immediate consequences of the quarantine's economic collapse. Poor, starving families silently drag the stiffened bodies of their own husbands and sisters out of the locked cellars, having them onto the overflowing carts. Every corpse is thrown entirely naked. The grieving survivors have frantically stripped their dead loved ones bare in the dark, stealing back the infected woolen clothes to wear the next morning, just to survive the crushing poverty. You slowly wipe the stinging residue of stale vinegar from your cracked lips. You grip your splintered wooden stick, the wood slippery with sweat. As the massive cart disappears into the noxious fog, you know the grueling search for blackened tongues will simply begin again at dawn. The sweltering morning sun quickly returns, baking the disease deep into the narrow London streets. You stand alone in the suffocating heat, violently coughing up heavy black soot from the sickroom brimstone, into a filthy, stiffened rag. The wealthy aristocrats and cowardly physicians who mandated your suffering have long since fled to their pristine country estates, leaving behind their massive, locked manors. But the brutal system of exploitation never stops. You watch scavengers systematically break into the abandoned estates, greedily collecting the heavily perfumed, discarded silk garments of the fleeing lords. You know exactly where these luxurious fabrics go. You watch as they are aggressively boiled in hidden vats of caustic lye, only to be secretly resold at extortionate prices to the ignorant, starving poor. The very same wretched souls who were violently nailed inside their homes to die are now unknowingly purchasing the infected remnants of the masters who locked them there. You tighten your grip on your red parish wand. In a city choking on venom, the true plague is the terrifying certainty that tomorrow you will do it all again. If Agnes's agonizing struggle through the plague-ridden streets of London has shifted your perspective on history, leave a like, subscribe, and explore our other forgotten survivors.